The Reverend Ashley Rosser from the United Methodist Church in the US tells of a lovely tradition her school had for all the Year 6 students. On graduating from Year 6, they would leave a gift for the new Year 6 students to help them settle in. It would sometimes be a physical gift for them, perhaps a special pen or a letter with some words of wisdom for how to survive. But whatever they left, it was a parting gift for them, a way of helping the new students along the path of their journey. They left a legacy. Well, today's reading is part of Jesus' farewell speech in John's Gospel, where he talks about his legacy and what he is leaving them to help them along their life journey. He says, "If you love me, you will keep my commands." Now, Jesus had a number of commands, but particularly in John's Gospel, they can all be summed up in one sentence. Have love for one another, just as Jesus has loved you. He also says, it is by this love that we will be known. Therefore, to love Jesus is ultimately most fully and beautifully expressed in loving others. The children this morning will be beautifying a poster that says, love Jesus equals love others. Jesus leaves a legacy of love. Jesus invited the disciples to continue the work that he had started. By loving with a generous heart, by focusing on those who needed extra support and healing, those who were poor and marginalized, those imprisoned, hungry, sick, and strangers. Jesus treated all humans with dignity and not prejudice, and embraced the life of abundance. By nurturing this legacy in ourselves, we are living out Jesus' commandment. What an incredible legacy, and one that challenges us and inspires us each day. Obviously, Jesus has asked us to leave a good legacy. However, we have inherited some legacies that do not display God's love. At the moment, the World Council of Mission, CWM, is engaged in a process of uncovering the legacy of slavery in the church's mission within its own history and the history of the partner churches, which includes the URC. We are confronting the hard truths of how the church benefited from slavery and at times propagated it, examining our history and the impact it has had on the present, repenting and working towards reparations to rectify some of the catastrophic consequences of this legacy of slavery for many ethnic minority communities. As a church and a European community, we have benefited from a system that disproportionately prejudiced people of color and economically and socially oppressed people of ethnic minorities. Why, you may ask, am I highlighting this devastatingly checkered church history now in a service focused on love? Well, it is important because many communities still live with this legacy today. It's not only part of history, but rather it is part of the present. What will be the legacy that we leave behind when all of us are out of lockdown and we are in society again together? Let us not walk blindly into this new reality, as the consequences may be with us for generations to come. It is exactly because we are focused on love, and that love being expressed through how we treat one another, that it is important for us to face up to this reality, now more than ever. In this time of change, we need to be present to our reality, making meaningful and conscious decisions based on what we believe Jesus would want from us. For example, We need to be asking, why is our NHS, our National Health Service, not doing more to protect our frontline staff who are people of colour? We now have ample evidence that communities of colour are more vulnerable to this virus and have a higher death rate from infections. In fact, 4 times more likely to die of COVID-19 than white communities. Anecdotally, we only need to ask our URC ministers serving in ethnic minority communities what they are spending much of their time in this lockdown doing. And they are doing a devastatingly large amount of funerals. Last week, the Church of England bishops joined 70 prominent public figures to call on the government to establish a public inquiry into the disproportionately higher death rate among some ethnic groups from COVID-19. They have also asked for a thorough investigation into the treatment of Black, Asian, and minority ethnic staff by their employers, the exposure of COVID-19 of BAME key workers in the NHS and other sectors, and the preparedness of the government in responding to the impact on BAME communities. Please, let our legacy not be silence in the face of this painful reality. Let us stand alongside communities that are disproportionately vulnerable to this virus. The Public Joint Issues Team, JPIT, have brought out a report chronicling the ways in which this lockdown period has affected so many families in the UK alone. There is an overall increase of 81% of people who have accessed food banks for emergency food parcels, with 122% increase in children needing this food. After 10 years of austerity has already taken its toll on so many areas of public life, and now this is threatening just to be a beginning of something new. What will be the legacy of our voice on these issues? In our passage, Jesus says to the disciples, to love him is to follow how he has loved, to continue the legacy of his work of building a world that is based on justice, mercy, compassion, and love for all. As followers of Jesus, we have a strong command to love our neighbor, just as Jesus has loved us. Jesus promises to send another advocate to help the disciples once he is gone, his Spirit of truth, who will guide and lead them. Jesus showed us how to have a legacy of love. Now we each have the Spirit of truth who will guide and lead us in this time and all times. According to a YouGov poll, 91% of the nearly 4,500 people who took part in the poll don't want life to go back to the way it was before the lockdown. I believe the Spirit is moving in our world, revealing a truth that the harm we were doing to our planet and to our society has not sat well with us for a long time. This time of stopping has given us time to give voice to this dis-ease. 2/5 of the people felt that there was a much stronger sense of community in their area since the lockdown began, and people have noticed the wildlife has come back. So let us pray that the gift that God has given us, the Spirit of truth, that we will trust, obey the promptings of the Spirit, that we will have the courage to stand up and have our voice heard at this time. No longer will we be silent in the face of this prejudice against groups within our communities. When we come out of this time together, there are going to be so many challenges that we will need to face together as communities that support one another. There are going to be hardships on the economic level, on society integrating once again. Let our legacy be that we are the people of God who hear and trust that love will prevail.